Alrighty. If I am live, this is going to be really kind of funny. I am going to be verifying if I am live. And I am there. Okay. So, I have now done this video. This will be the fourth time. So, in one way, at least, this video is going to be way better than the first time that I did it. But in many ways, and basically every way, it's going to be much shorter and much worse than the first time I did it. Buckle yourself in, because this is going to suck. Actually, it's not going to be super bad at all. What we're going to be doing, actually, is using Shredsheets, which is this amazing spreadsheet that I built, and some weird Android app that you can find over here. Everything's totally free. I'm not trying to make money off of anybody. Use this spreadsheet or this Android app that I made to try to learn how we actually make all of the chords that you could find in the C major scale. Let's play through those chords right here, right now. Here's C major. Oh, these are the 7th chords, by the way, that are going to be able to be played. So here we go. C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant, A minor 7, B diminished, all the way back to C major 7. Okay. How do we get this crazy mix? And what is a dominant chord? And no, it has nothing to do with Cesar Millan, even though it really should. That guy has basically got a complete ownership of the word dominate. Okay, so what is a dominant chord? What is a diminished chord? What's a major chord? What's a minor chord? And how do we derive all of that garbage from Shredsheets? Here we go. Starting off, we're going to be using either the A string here or the E string as our starting point for building these chords, because these are the two strings that most people are comfortable with building bar chords off of. Or some Nirvana. Everybody's used to bar chords. If you're a guitarist who's moderately interested in this in any way, you know a bunch of bar chords. Okay. So we're going to be starting with this idea of going from a bar chorded position in the C major scale, which is what this guy is right here. This whole thing right here is the C major scale between the 1st and the 12th fret. Between the 12th and the 24th fret, if you have a 24 fretted guitar, is actually just an exact copy of this. So we don't need to look at the whole fretboard, even though we can. We can include the whole thing. We can see that it's just a copy. The stuff from 12 to 24 is an exact copy of 0 to 12. So here we go. We're going to start from 0 to 12. Here on the A string, which is our second thickest string, on the C, or on the 3rd fret, we got a C. This is the most common, basic, intro, hi, I've never played guitar, I'm looking at a tutorial chord that you'll ever learn, is the C major chord. I think it's basically most people's first chord, unless they learn like a bar A, but C major chord is one of the very first chords. So we're going to be using the starting point of C here on the 3rd fret of the A string, kind of for everything. Okay, so how do we determine where the parts of a chord are, and what are the parts of a chord, and what is all of this garbage? And there's a bunch of jargon that people throw around with this. Well, let's talk about what is stacking thirds, other than just the worst terminology ever for something. Stacking thirds comes around from this idea that if you have a scale, which is all of the notes in one octave that we broke up into 12 notes, and you omit some pieces so that you have a fixed number of notes, we have 7 notes in our scale. We call each one of these notes that belongs into our scale a degree of that scale. Their position and that degree are relative to where they are compared to the first note in that scale. So in C, the C is our first note. It's the first degree. D is the second, E is the 3rd, F is the 4th, G is the 5th, A is the 6th, B is the 7th, and then we start back over on C again. And you notice that it went from G to A. If you're not familiar with why it goes from G to A, it's because music is all of these things are a circle. As it keeps getting up and up and up, you go like, and like keeps going higher and higher and higher and higher. Those actually just recycle a whole bunch of notes as they get higher. They're just higher versions of them. So we needed to start over counting at a certain point, or you could realistically say we go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you could call this one H if you wanted to. And it could be the higher version of A down here. But instead of doing like H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, all the way up here, and then say, okay, well, what about the 7th octave? Well, that one's going to be like K, W, or something ridiculous like that. They just loop them, and they say, okay, you get to G sharp, and then back to A. And then you could say which octave you're in. It's like the 4th octave of A, the 2nd octave of A. Of course, those numbers are relative. But regardless, we go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then back to A. Okay. So what are stacked thirds? I just said we have 2nd and a 3rd degree. Maybe you got some intuition that had something to do with this guy right here. And that's exactly what it is. But stacked thirds is like, okay, you get a 3rd. What's the next 3rd? Is it another E? No, it's not another E. You pretend that you start over at 1 again from E. And then you just skip the 2 and you go to the 3. So I say stacked thirds is garbage terminology, and instead what they want is like alternating tones or something like that. Alternating notes, skipped notes, not nested, but alternating any sort of thing that gives some intuition that you're actually proceeding through the progression. Getting every other note is what a chord is based off of. It's every other note, not this idea of repeating the 3rd note of the C scale. It's imagining that you restart over in the E scale and pick the 3rd from that, and then restart over in the G scale and pick the 3rd from that, and restart over in the B scale. Oh, FML. Don't want to deal with that. Don't want to deal with that. We're just going to say alternating tones. So you're going to start with C and take alternating tones, which are stacked thirds. Here you're going to go C, E, G, B. Okay, so we go 1, 3, 5, 7. Alternating tones. Okay, here we go, and we got our starting point here. It's the 3rd fret of the 5th string. We're going to call this our starting point. This is C. Well, let's go to that first note that we want to get to from where we are. That's why I don't like using numbers. So we're going to go to the next note of our chord, which is going to be skipping 1 and then going to the next. Here we go from C to E. Well, you can't play the same string in the same position, so let's see if we can get this E somewhere else, and it's right there. You'll notice that this is an E, and this is an E, and there's an E over here also, but these aren't all the same E's. This one right here is the low E string. This one right here is the 7th fret on the A string. It's an octave higher. That octave right there is the same as this one. And then when you go up here to the 9th fret of the G string, you're in the next octave, which continues here on the 5th fret of the B string and continues on the open of the E string. So you've got 3 octaves that you're negotiating here with the E. But since we're starting here and we're skipping to here, that means we're dealing with this octave. It's just that guy or that guy. Since we can't play the same string twice, well, we can, but not at the same time. We're going to play that one and that one. Okay, so what's the difference between a major chord and a minor chord? Well, whoa, look at that. We went from C with the 3rd right there, and he skipped back. So we went from a 3rd to a minor 3rd. Minor 3rd. But that wasn't the only thing that changed. This pink guy right below it changed also. And that's our 7th. Say, okay, so from here on the 1, we could find the 3 by going up to the left. And if it's, if it's minor, it'll be 2 to the left. And the 7th will be where we're at and just 2 to the left. And if, I keep getting that undo button sound. And if it's major, they're going to be right next to us. Okay, that's super convenient, not confusing. Super convenient, not confusing. Major, they're close to us. Minor, they're far away. Major, they're close. Minor, they're far. Major, they're close. Minor, they're far. Okay, so what else is in here? We went from the first and we got the third, and we went over here and we got this fifth note here, and we kind of just skipped straight to the seventh. Well, what about that fifth? He's clearly important. He's part of the gang too. So we're going to start at this first and say, okay, this fifth note that we're going to get is right there up above us. And we're going to start on the C, and we're going to pick up that G. And we're very familiar with this chord formation. This is a fifth chord. Regular old power chord. Boring power chord. Good old-fashioned boring power chord. Okay. What's an easier way to find this thing than just looking up to the right 2 blocks? Because that's kind of where it's always at. It's also right below us. Look at that. Right below us on the E string. That's super convenient. Knowing that going from any note on the C or on the A string, we can go back 1 or 2 notes, figure out what our seventh is. We can go up and to the left 1 or 2 notes and figure out what our third is. Or we just drop right down and boom. Hey, you right there? Hey, you're my fifth. Okay, awesome. So right here on your note, you can figure out everything about all the chords that you need by its immediate neighbors. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, but that's one note. That's one note. That's the C major chord. And we're in the D, I'm sorry, that's the C major chord, but we're going to be moving on now to figuring out what the D chord is. If we're going to be starting on the D position, we've got a couple of things that are different now. These aren't the exact same thing as what was going on before. Like, not even close, actually. If we look here, our third, going from a C up here to the left, we got a third. D up to the left, we don't have a third. And D to the left, we don't have a seventh. We have to go back 1 more to get to that third. Go back 1 more to get to that seventh. Well, if you don't have one right there and you have to go back, remember, that's minor. So we got the major and the minor. Minor, major, minor, major, minor, major. So you go back and forth. Okay, so this D had to go back here. So we got minor third, minor seventh. Then right down here, we got that fifth right below it, but here it says it's a sixth. That's because these scale degrees, these numbers, are relative to the C major scale. Let's kick this over to the D scale and say, oh, well, that's not the scale that we were in because we had a flat third and a flat seventh. We're going to have to kick this down to Aeolian, which is the minor mode. Okay, so here we got that flat third and that flat seventh, and we got that nice perfect fifth again. So we got a regular old-fashioned D minor chord, D minor 7. How are we going to actually play that, though? We start on the D here, pick up the fifth like we normally would on a bar chord. Let's just leave that bar there and pick up that seventh along with it, and then drop our ring finger down to pick up this third right here. Okay, so let's do that, and now we can play the whole thing. Ooh, very nice minor chord. Now let's go back to the C major scale, which is the scale that we were building all of our stuff off of. So now we saw, okay, here's our D, and we're kind of getting used to the idea that maybe these numbers that we're seeing aren't particularly useful in relation to building chords as we're going through it, and we can kind of ignore them. And the most important thing is just that there's something there, that there's a value that could be played there. It is important to keep in mind, though, that when you get strange scales, you might get things that are right next to each other that aren't alternating tones. So it might seem like this thing right here is a minor third for you. Well, what if you have a minor third and a major third? Then what you're going to have to do is just make sure that you're skipping a tone. So you skip one and then skip one. So if you skip one and then pick up the next one also, that's still a valid chord. It's just not the major or the minor chord that you're going for. You're going for these alternating tones. So that's the only thing that these numbers can really, truly help you with. as you're building these extended chords along the C major scale is saying, is it right next to it, or is it really a double of it? See, 3 to 5. If this was a 4, then that would not be an interval that we want. We want to go 3, 4. We would go 3, 4, we would go 3, 5. But this isn't that. You go 3, 4, 5. 5's right there. We got the minor third, minor seventh, perfect fifth. So in the C major scale, we got a C major chord, C major 7, D minor 7, we got these minors right here, E minor 7, and then F. Hey, look at that. We got a major third again, and a major seventh, and a perfect fifth. Look at that. You're just like the C chord. C chord, you got a major third, major fifth, or man. You got a major third, a major seventh, and a perfect fifth. Here on the F chord, you got a major third, a major seventh, and a perfect fifth. Awesome. Back into harmony. Okay, now it gets a little dicey, and I like that. We get over to this G chord, and we say, oh, baby, how are we going to make it so interesting with this G chord? Well, look at that there. We got ourselves a major third, and we're missing the major 7. We've got a minor 7. We say, okay. Well, this goes straight from 4 to 5, and we said we were alternating things before. If you look at this, we go 1, 3, 5, 7, but then it goes right back to 1 again. So you don't have to alternate that way. Where were we? Okay, here we are in G. Okay, so we've got a major third and a minor 7th. Still got that perfect fifth though, so at least we got that going for us. Let's figure out how can we play this chord. If we're going to be starting here on the G, and we want to pick up the fifth, we're going to pick up that fifth, and we want to pick up all, wow, there's a lot of notes going on in here, and we can't exactly figure out what's going on. There's a lot of noise. What's the notes that we should play? Well, oh, that's funny. I still have it on the wrong one from the last time I did this. Okay, so this is a dominant chord, and I was saying like Cesar Millan has like an ownership of the whole dominant word, but in musical terms, this is actually what it comes down to. When you have a major third and a minor 7, they call it a dominant chord. Okay, so let's start here with our index finger on the 12th or on the 10th fret of the A string. That gives us this G here. Let's pick up the 5. And let's leave the bar and get that 7. And let's take our, instead of the trilly ring finger that we would normally use here, or rather the middle finger that we would normally use here to pick up the 3rd, let's use our pinky to pick up the 3rd here. So instead it sounds like this. Ooh, that's a spicy sound. That's spicy. And that's a very dominant sound. It's a cool sound. And this is the sound that naturally arises from the C major progression. So it's not like we're creating something weird. But what it is it's a mix between major and minor sounding. It's really kind of cool. You got that major third and that minor 7th sound. And what this does is it gives you a really great bridge to resolution. Check this out. Okay, let's start on a C major. This is C major 7. We're going to go up to an E minor 7, back to a D minor 7, now going to a C or a G dominant, back to a C major 7. And it's the perfect resolution. Now let's do it a little faster without me talking so you can actually feel it. There's the resolution. That G dominant gives us the option of going minor or major, and when we decide to go back to where we started with, we have this amazing feeling of resolution. Okay, so that's the 5th chord. The 5th chord is dominant. Let's see. What am I looking at here? Oh, okay. Wrong chord chart. So back to the key of C major up here. So we just got through this G, which had the major third and the minor 7, the perfect 5th. Let's go on to our next note. We got this A here, and look at that. We got a minor 3rd and a minor 7. It's not right next to it, it's right here. And we got a perfect 5th. So minor 3rd from A, minor 7, got a perfect 5th. So we're back to a regular old minor chord. Oh, thank goodness. Regular old minor chord. Because it's about to get spicy up in here. Okay, this is where everything gets really fun, because now we're moving on to our 7th chord of the scale. And look at this. We have a flat 3, a flat 7, and we don't have a perfect 5th. What's going on here? I need an answer to this right now. How do we deal with the fact that we don't have a perfect 5th? This is the only one that doesn't have a perfect 5th, so this 5th better be gosh darn spicy. Okay, let's figure out how we're going to play this sucker. Well, let's start here on the B. And I guess we're going to use this guy as our 5th. But let's see if that's the one that we should use. So we're going from B, we're going to alternate to get to our 3rd, that's D, and alternate to get to our 5th, that's F. Okay, so we're going to go from B to F. So we got, our F should be here, it's right here. We got a flat 5th, flat 5. Well, we know that we can't play this 3rd because it's on the same string as this flat 5. So what can we do? Let's see. If we go from B and we go skip that guy into the 3rd, we know that we need to get a D in there somehow. And we know that we got an F. And if we go all the way through, we need an A. So we go B, D, F, A. So B, F. Look at that. A, D. B fad. B fad. So let's play that real quick. Wow, that's so spicy. Oh, I love it. Let's get some whammy. It's just obscene. And what is going on with this? Well, this guy is the diminished chord. It's the diminished chord, which is different than the diminished scale. Diminished scale is different than a diminished chord. And if you use Shredsheets, over here, and I probably shouldn't even bring this up, but if you use Shredsheets over here and you go to the diminished chords, this won't help you find the diminished chord for this. You'll find the wrong chord, because this is a weird scale, actually. This is a scale where you actually have 8 tones in it, and it's not handled well in the Shredsheets. Okay, so just know that going here and switching to diminished is different than this diminished that we're talking about right now. Diminished chord, you got that flat 5, you got that flat 7, and that flat 3. Well, what's great about this is that all of these notes here, every single one of them is a leading tone that can take us to another awesome sounding chord. And okay, leading tone, we're going to have to do a whole nother video about that, but the idea is that if you go up one note from any one of these notes, you go up one note from any one of them, and it's going to sound perfect. It's going to sound correct. I say perfect. It won't sound perfect. It'll sound correct. So let's take an example. Okay, we're going to say we got a B. Oh, we've got it right here. We've got a B, a D, an F, and an A. Well, let's go from D. Let's go one note up from that. And that's not one note in the scale. That's one tone, like D sharp. Go from B, go from this to a D sharp. Hey, sounds resolute. Sometimes you have to coax the resolution out of it by hitting the tone that will lead to the next one, kind of right before you pass it in. But like, let's say we hit that D again, and let's see, the D was our B string, so we're going to hit our B string again right before we transition. Ah, it gets the transition a little bit stronger. Okay, so we went from B and we got D. We picked the next one to get that leading tone effect in. Let's try F. Let's get that leading tone in on F. That's F sharp. So we're going to go from our B diminished to F sharp. Whoa. So what's going on with that? That doesn't sound right. It's because it doesn't lead to F sharp major. Doesn't lead to F sharp minor. Doesn't lead to F sharp dominant or diminished. Let's see, what does it lead to? Maybe it does lead to the major and I just wasn't coaxing it in correctly. Yep, there it is. And that's the lesson. You have to coax in that leading. The voice leading thing, it works. It really does work. But you have to kind of like, you have to really like lead it along. And now I know why everybody has like a pick holder in a live show. I just drop my pick into a sea of cables and it is not getting rescued. Okay, so we are now at the point where we've built all 7 chords from the C major scale. Let's jam with them for a second. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope it wasn't too obnoxious for you. I know this is my 3rd or 4th time, maybe even 5th time, filming this video, but I actually think this one was better than all the other ones. Thank you very much for watching. All the love. Bye.